hard world building and soft world building. Well, what's the difference? When do you use one and not the other? Well, let's talk about it. World building is one of the pillars of storytelling, especially in fantasy and science fiction, and it doesn't matter if you're building a TTRPG or a novel, your world will need building. But not all worlds are built the same. Some are meticulously constructed down to the millimeter, while others feel more like, watercolor paintings. They're blurry around the edges, but rich in feeling. That's where we get the terms hard world building and soft world building. Now, first of all, hard world building is all about the details. It's when you as the creator lay down the rules, the logic, and the history of your world with precision and clarity. You know what the currency is called, how it's minted, and what happens if someone counterfeits it. You have maps and timelines and political systems that would make a historian weep with joy. Think of like Lord of the Rings. Tolkien didn't just create a map of Middle-earth, he created languages, alphabets, and millennia of history. Those of you who have read the Silmarillion know what I'm talking about. If someone asks why are the dwarves and elves at odds, Tolkien wouldn't just say, oh, they had a falling out. He'd pull out a binder and walk you through every betrayal and cultural misunderstanding that led to that animosity. Hard world building is for when your audience needs to understand your world in order to engage with it. It's for stories where the rules of the world are integral to the plot. Like in Dune, we wouldn't understand the movie Dune or the books without its deep lore about spice politics and the Bene Gesserit. But hard worlding has its pitfalls. It can feel overwhelming or dry if the details start to overshadow the story itself. Have you ever sat through a lore dump and thought, well, this is fascinating, but when do we get back to the characters? Well, it happens. And on top of that, hard world building can be difficult for newbies and extremely time consuming, which can lead to burnout. Now, we don't need all the lore. Most people never see 99% of what comes up. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. That's where soft world building comes in. Now, the best way to think of soft world building is that it's the art of suggestion. It's when you create a world that feels rich and alive without needing to explain every little detail. Instead of handing your audience a detailed map, you give them a compass and let them imagine the terrain. Think of like Studio Ghibli films. Like in Spirited Away, we don't get a full explanation of how the bathhouse works, what the rules of the spirit world are, or why Yubaba can just turn into a bird, and yet it feels complete. The details are there. It's just out of reach. Now, the audience does the heavy lifting of coming up with the lore on their own, and in some ways, soft world building can help create more of that magical feeling because of the mystery. Soft world building thrives in stories where the focus is on the mood, the mystery, or the character rather than plot mechanics. It lets the audience fill in the gaps, which can make the world feel even more magical because their imagination is doing most of that work. But soft world building also has its own risks. If you leave too much unsaid, your world might feel shallow or inconsistent.
Merry Christmas, sir.
It certainly is, Lucy.
Or in the worst case scenario, it just lacks sense and ends up feeling rushed or lazy. That's a real fine line between leaving space for imagination and leaving your audience confused. So when should you use one over the other? Well, the answer, I think, lies in your story's needs. If your plot relies on rules like magic systems or political intrigue like Game of Thrones or detailed quests, I would lean into hard world building. If your story's strengths are its characters, its atmosphere, or its emotional resonance, then soft world building might be the way to go. The best worlds, though, they often blend both. They use hard world building for the essentials and soft world building to create a sense of wonder. So let's take Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know I love to talk about that show, but let's take that and look at the bending mechanics. Those are super well defined, and the world itself has mysteries. There's spiritual realms that don't really make sense. There's ancient secrets and whatever the fuck this thing is.
If I can just get out of this situation alive, I will give up meat.
In most cases, you don't need to go full Tolkien or full Studio Ghibli. You can use hard world building where it matters and soften the edges where it doesn't. Think of it like building a house. The foundation and structure, that's your hard world building. It keeps everything standing and ensures that it makes sense, but the decor, the lighting, the mood, that's your soft world building. It makes the house feel more like a home. In Game of Thrones, for example, George R.R. Martin gives us an incredibly detailed political system, its geography and its history, and we know exactly why certain houses are feuding, who their ancestors were, and even the lineage of their banners. Now that's hard world building, but there are still gaps, like the origin of the White Walkers, or at least early on. There's the mysteriousness of the faceless men. These soft elements keep the world feeling vast and unknowable. Star Wars is another great example. The original trilogy leans heavily into soft world building. We don't need a full explanation of how the Force works to understand that it's powerful. The mystery is part of its appeal. But as the franchise expanded, we got more hard world building. The politics of the Galactic Senate, the intricacies of Jedi training, the exact mechanics of hyperspace travel.
If The first three barely mention the intricacies of intergalactic trade law.
For some fans, this enriched the world, and for others, it stripped away some of the magic. Now, no matter which approach you lean toward, there are common pitfalls to avoid. So for example, in hard world building, you don't want to drown your audience in lore. If your story starts with a 10-minute explanation of your world's history, well, you might lose them before they care about the characters. Spread your details out throughout the story, revealing them naturally as they become relevant and as it comes up in conversation. Don't over-explain. Leave some room for that mystery. Even Tolkien left things unexplained, like Tom Bombadil, right? Sometimes the best answer is, who knows, he's just weird. And then for soft world building, you don't want to confuse mystery with laziness. Leaving gaps is fine, don't get me wrong, but make sure that your world still feels cohesive. If your rules are too vague, well, your audience might struggle to stay invested. Be consistent. Even a soft world needs internal logic. If magic is mysterious, that's fine, but don't suddenly introduce hard rules halfway through without setting them up originally. And ultimately, world building is about creating a space where your story can thrive anyways, right? It's not about proving how much you know or how detailed you can be, and trust me, I myself am a victim of that mentality. World building is about giving your audience what they need to fall in love with your world. So whether you're designing a sprawling map for your TTRPG, or writing a novel that spans generations, or just crafting a one-shot, think about what serves your story best. Hard or soft, detailed or vague, your world building should always enhance the experience, not overshadow it. Remember, you have nothing to prove to anyone other than yourself. Anyways, I hope this helped. Let me know in the comments down below, what type of world builder are you? Are you soft or hard?
Maximum hardness, Metapod.
Okay, that was awkward. Anyways, we're gonna move on from that. Thank you so much for watching. Forge on, my friends, and we'll see you next time, adventurers.